I learned so much from maybe the mistakes I made at the start. From the moment we had that chat, every kind of frustration that I had within the company, those senses were heightened even more. We sort of just made it work. But yeah, it was really tough. I remember the first few months in particular. I think, not only dealing with a property, you're dealing with a person as well. And what people remember is how you made that person feel. Fast forward 3 years and we're completely different.
Hello and welcome to the After Hours Property Podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Marc Wood, who is the director of Harrison Wood, and they're an estate agency based in Colchester. I actually saw you and your firm, I think, start up on LinkedIn. And I think I mentioned before, I've been seeing you guys go from strength to strength. So it's so good to have you on here, talk about, your success and where you sort of look into the future. So thanks for coming on.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
So very briefly, we were just having a chat there about, starting up businesses and what we learned in our first businesses and using it into our new ones now. And you were just talking about what you learned from your first one. So do you want to go into that in a bit of detail?
Yeah, so as I said, I started my first business when I was 24, a company called Taylor Milburn. We grew that to offices and they're still going today. But I was saying, when I first went into business, I'd worked for Countrywide for 5 years prior to that. So I worked my way up to branch manager. And I always felt confident in what I can do as an estate agent and business. What I didn't do is really educate myself. I hadn't read one business book, I think, by the time we started. It was just a case of, okay, what I've done over the last 4 or 5 years within my career, with the people that I had around me at the time, I thought I can make that work again.
Sure.
So, and yes, we certainly made it work, but it was certainly probably a slower process had I maybe slowed down a little bit and perhaps educate myself a little bit more into going into not necessarily the same industry, but more from a business perspective,
Yeah, I think that when you, especially in my first business, when you sort of start, you're just so eager and you do everything you can, and you just keep going and you almost forget about the actual business side. If you've been an estate agent for, God, however many years, you're used to doing, I guess, your one role, which is negotiations or progressing. And sometimes you don't have to deal with the actual, like growing the actual business side. So when you jumped into it, like I did, you just sort of go. Yeah. And that's one thing that I've learned is you need to, I've heard it quite a lot, is you need to work on your business rather than in your business.
Yeah, sure.
Was that something that you've sort of put into this company, Harrison Wood?
Yeah, I think so. I think, as I said, going back to that, and I can resonate 100%. It's very much a case of tunnel vision. It's like, actually, I'm going to do this now. I'm just going to go for it and do it. Slowing down, maybe trying to take one step back to move two forward. I guess I learned so much from maybe the mistakes I made at the start, taking that into obviously starting Harrison Wood, because I'd been in business for coming up to 5 years before we started Harrison Wood. So there was a lot of things I could take away, positive and negative, what we'd done previously, coming into this new venture.
Yeah, amazing. So where did it all start out? Are you from where you were a Colchester boy growing up?
Yeah, so we live just outside of Colchester in a village near Mersey Island.
Oh, nice.
I've got a circuit of friends in and around the Colchester area. I started my estate agency career in Braintree. It was Taylor's Countrywide at the time before they submerged the Taylor's brand into Abbott's. I started at the beginning of 2007, so I must have been about 19.
Great time to start.
Yeah, well, it was great for a year, then it all went wrong. Prior to that, I'd recently just finished college, sixth form college, and I had no real intention of getting into any sort of further education.
Right.
And I always wanted to get into a sales job. So the most obvious thing that sprung to mind was a estate agency. So after 3 or 4 unsuccessful interviews, I managed to land a role as the trainee in the Taylor's branch in Braintree.
Amazing. So how long ago would that be now?
So that was the start of 2007. So 13
years.
And a half years ago, yeah.
Wow. So, and how long were you in that first firm for?
So I stayed there right the way up until the point of leaving Taylor Milburn. So start 2007, right the way through to the end of 2011, I think it was. And we saw a lot of changes within that company. I know Countrywide gets a lot of negative press, certainly in the estate agency industry at the moment.
Yeah.
But the subsidiary that I joined was a company called, the subsidiary was called Countrywide Eastern Counties.
Right.
And it was, I think, a very different company to what Countrywide looks like today. The MD, a guy called Alec Watt, lovely guy. He had a real passion for people and a real enthusiasm to, I guess, do things the right way. Since there was core values within that business, which they really, felt strongly about everyone sort of buying into that. And they provided some great training. Great training. There was a lot of managers who at the time have now gone on to run their own independent businesses, and I think that sort of speaks volumes from how that company was run.
Yeah.
So as I said, that was in 2007 when I started, and worked my way up from sort of trainee right the way up to management level. But I saw massive changes within that company within that time. Of course, the 2008 property crash was the main reason for that.
Yeah.
And but we saw a lot of those people that I really looked up to in the first few years, they left for a number of reasons and went off to do their own things. And I think they were either not replaced or replaced with people that had very, very different views and very different ethos, really.
Sure.
We saw a big shift between the Taylor brand and the Atlas brand in particular. But I still sort of worked my way up into that company. And then I think it got towards, it must have been sort of mid-2011 where I thought, I started looking around other businesses and thought, yeah, okay, well, I can see we're not getting to where they are. We were sort of losing market share, and when staff would leave, they weren't necessarily replaced, and you wanted to push forward with marketing, and those things weren't necessarily being done. So I guess I felt I had more ambition than that subsidiary at the time.
Sure.
And even at that point, I had no intention of starting my own business. It was more a case of, okay, well, maybe if I can get in with a company that has maybe shared the same sort of values that I had and sort of had the company had at the start.
Yeah.
And it was literally one day, my old manager, a guy called Jamie, who still runs Taylor Milburn, he approached me one day and I said, look, he's thinking about starting on his own. Do I want to join him? And at first, I think I said no. I said I kind of felt, I'm too young, and I think I just got on the property ladder myself, so I needed security, or I felt I needed security at that time, financially. But I remember almost from the moment we had that chat, every kind of frustration that I had within the company, those senses were heightened even more, So I'd find myself saying to myself, oh, well, actually, I was frustrated about something, and then I'd be like, well, if I had my own company and we run our own business, so
it sparked that idea in your mind.
Yeah, almost so much until it was like, actually, do you know what? And that's what we did. And it was like a case of just like a mind shift from not doing it to, right, we're going to go do it now,
Yeah. And what was the biggest sort of culture shock, or biggest, not problem, but the thing that hit most? What was it when you started out on your own?
Well, obviously we were going out on our own, and we started in Braintree. So I've always lived in Colchester, never lived in Braintree, but obviously always worked there as well. So I guess when I look back on it, and again, going back to what I would have done differently, and obviously when I took those mistakes into Harrison Wood, I think what we didn't do was really look at coming to the market with something different.
Sure.
It was a case of, right, okay, well, we've all worked together, we've done well work for one company, let's take exactly what we've got now with our own brand and let's do it again. When in hindsight, what we should have done is really looked at what the market is offering at the moment and come to the marketplace with real points of difference, whether it's to do a service, whatever it might be. And I don't think we did that, or certainly not enough, and I think that perhaps hindered us. So there were a number of things when I think I look back and think, yeah, actually, that could have been done better. Perhaps this could have been done better. But we're all new to it. None of us had ever run our own business before, so I said, certainly learn from mistakes. One thing I think, looking back, because there were 4 of us that started the business originally, and that very soon became 3. And I don't think we ever talked about where we ever saw the company really going and how we wanted to get there, and going through real core values. So we sort of just made it work. But yeah, it was really tough. I remember the first few months in particular, it was like, wow, okay, we've got on the market whatsoever.
Yeah.
The market was still in that recession stage. It was just sort of coming out of it, but it was still a tough time. And no one had ever heard of us. No one had ever heard of our brand. We built up a few relationships with people over the past few years at Countrywide, but it wasn't like we had a huge community of people that we knew in that area. So, well, I certainly didn't anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough. It was just a case of working really, really hard to, I think, the first 6 to 9 months actually keeping the business afloat, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, I can completely relate to that. When I started my first business, I think we thought it was going to do well after about 6 months. Oh no, about five months, we were sort of just paying our way through, and then I think it got to month 6 and it almost just stopped, and I was just like, oh God. So I went and got myself a part-time job, and that's when you're just working all the hours, and you sort of you're running around like a bit of a headless chicken. And you said there about having your vision and goals and having your core values. I think that's so important. That's one of the things that I've learned and taken into this new company. And it's a thing that a lot of people do touch on. They say, like, you've got to have them to make sure they get you up in the morning, they keep you going, they keep you aligned with what you're actually looking to achieve. And I think this is one of the things that really sets agents apart, is having, I guess, trying to strive for more. You could go up, and if some of the companies out there, they're just doing what they need to do. Whereas people like yourselves are really going to stand out when you are really sort of focused on what it is that you are doing. But what sort of things, I guess, did you bring to market in Harrison Wood to try and differentiate yourself from other people? Because I know that Colchester, or in and around Colchester, is quite competitive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's really competitive. There's a lot of agents here, and it's a big town. It's a city, basically, in terms of its population.
Yeah.
But I think one thing we did, so when I was sort of in my last year with Taylor Milburn, I guess I kind of had certain frustrations which I had at Countrywide, I guess, and not with any one person in particular, but I guess where the business had got to within that stage, and perhaps where it was going.
Yeah.
So what we really wanted to do is come to the market with something new, something exciting, something whereby we would have the best marketing, we'd offer a great service. Starting a company, I guess, that was a fashionable brand that everyone wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
Looking at those elements and thinking, okay, well, this is how I and Shane, I'm a business partner, envisage a estate agency to look like. And then thinking about, okay, well, how are we going to roll that out, and how are we going to do these things, and consistently deliver on those things.
Yeah.
Every day.
I love that.
Yeah. So you kind of have to have that, I think, as I say, going back to, my first business, we didn't necessarily have that as such. And I think as you grow a business, particularly if you've never had that, it's very, very hard to then say, right, okay, well, we're 3 years in, what are our core values? Because you've got so far, it's very hard to say, okay, well, what do we now believe in? Particularly when you have a team around you and a group of, several employees who perhaps are thinking, okay, well, now we've got to change, as opposed to coming to something that's already set up,
Sure. Absolutely. So you went for sort of from, there's different agents that you got, the more corporate, and you got the smaller business who can, adapt to change. And I thought there's a bit more heart in the smaller businesses in agency that are looking to sort of create better in the agency word. How would you say, I guess, yourselves differ from a more corporate company?
Well, I think there's some things that we apply that I guess we see as essential, whereas perhaps other companies, corporate in particular, would see as a way to make extra revenue. So take, for example, our marketing. So we firmly believe that every property that we put to market, whether it's a one-bedroom house at 100 grand or a £1 million house, or it's a property that's to let, whatever that might be, we firmly believe that the marketing should be the best it can be. So take photos. We believe that property should have the best photography, regardless of size, location, price, whatever. So we feel that actually, as agents, we're the ones who should be giving the sellers the highest chance of selling that property for the best possible price. And going back to photography and obviously adding floor plans in there as well, they're two fundamental parts of that. Whereas, in my experience, a lot of corporate companies, they see that as added extras. And more often than not, added extras just to make a little bit of extra revenue. From a corporate perspective, if you've got 20 offices all putting 20 houses on the market a month, well, there's a lot of revenue coming in. If you're charging 150, 200 pounds up front, you can make a lot of revenue without even selling a property. So I guess that's their view on it. From our perspective, I guess we see there's a lot of inconsistency with that. Obviously now Rightmove and your own website, that's your shop window now. So if you're a client and you're going to look at actually what properties does that agent have for sale, and you go on their listing page and 3 of them are stunning. All the photography is great. There's floor plans on every single one of them. And the majority of the others, they aren't. You've got below standard photos, some details missing for whatever reason. There's consistency. And I think when you scratch away at the surface as a client, they might even think, okay, well, what more inconsistencies are you going to find?
Sure.
So from our perspective, it's a case of really, really important that we have consistency throughout our brand from start to finish. I think another big difference is perhaps client retention. When we set up the business, we made it really, really important from day one that client care and customer service was going to be one of our main things.
Sure.
And I think, in my opinion, it's a lot where agents have fallen down in the past.
I think as well, just to quickly touch on that, a lot of agents say that their focus is on customer service, but if you see what they're actually doing, it tells a whole another different story. And I think this is where, the companies that are, if you call it small businesses, they care more for their customer, whereas a corporate is more about, it's the numbers and making sure, which makes them who they are and it makes them that size. But it's company like yours that are really sort of showing customers how the moving process should be. And I think that corporates do sometimes forget that, you're dealing with the most important time of somebody's life. They could be moving in for whatever reason it is, and it could mean so much to them. If you're just another number, to them it almost loses the magic touch. Whereas when if you're really sort of caring for them and you're doing the marketing and it does all look amazing, I think it can really show in both your work and also the customers' sort of reviews and stuff after as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think not only dealing with a property, you're dealing with a person as well. And what people remember is how you made that person feel. What we do, we put properties on the market, we sell them, they go through to exchange. So the process, while we try and make it as different as we can, the process is very, very similar, but it's how we go about trying to make that person feel valued and ultimately think, okay, well, it's a very, very stressful time for them, as you quite rightly said, and they're selling the biggest asset they're most likely ever going to own in their life. So it's really important that they feel like they're not just another number, I guess.
Sure.
And I guess, when you're looking at kind of ethos and the fundamental difference, talking back maybe from my own experiences at Countrywide, is that I think the ethos of perhaps a corporate company is how can we make as much money today?
Yeah, sure.
As an independent business probably focuses more on how can we build longevity and how can we build relationships and build clients for life. So I think that's the real differences that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said earlier about one of your core values, or one of the things you focused on was, making sure that customer service was at the forefront of everything you did. Was there anything else that you sort of said right from the start, this is how we want our company to be?
Well, we really wanted to try and get in the mind of what a seller wants. So not what we think that they want, but actually what is it they want?
Sure.
So you're a vendor, you're looking at selling your property. What is it you really want from your agent? Is it just a cheap fee? Do you just want to get it sold quickly, whatever that might be? And we came to the conclusion that really a client wants two things: to sell their house for the highest price possible, and to get a great service along the way, so that it's as a simple transaction and as a stress-free transaction as possible.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case, but we'll try and push towards that as much as we can.
Yeah.
So everything comes back to those two points. Whatever your situation might be, that's what you want as a client. So it's how you deliver as much value in those points as possible. So selling for the highest price. So everything that we do marketing-wise points towards that objective.
Sure. Yeah.
So marketing, obviously, photography, floor plan, the virtual tours that we offer, they all go towards selling the property for the highest price. Because when you look at what consumer behaviour is doing now, very rarely do people come into offices to ask what properties you've got on the market. No one buys properties out of a newspaper anymore. I don't know.
Things have changed.
Yeah, exactly. So things have changed. So a lot of agents, in my experience, are perhaps still doing what they did 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's really important to keep up with consumer trends and the behaviours and how people buy. So we wanted to capture that audience as much as we could. And I said, really break it down. And by us doing that allowed us to come to the market with something new. I said, when we first started out, we looked at all of our competition. We thought, okay, there's some great companies that have been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But we see some inconsistencies here and there. So we wanted to bring that to the market. And I said, have those core values and beliefs from the start.
Cool. So there's there's a couple of different arms to your company, I believe. There's, you've got the mortgage side, and how important do you think it is to diversify as a business? Because as we just said, things are changing really, really quickly, especially now. How important do you think it is for a company to diversify in this market?
Yeah, I mean, hugely important. I think first and foremost, obviously you mentioned mortgages. We've got obviously a mortgage arm to our business. We've got a lettings team. I think obviously having those additional companies and services is hugely important. I think first and foremost, it's a hugely missed opportunity if you don't offer those things.
Yeah.
Also, you've got to think about client experience. So if you're just selling the property and you don't have a mortgage broker that you work alongside, you don't have a lettings team that can help, you don't have solicitors that you work alongside. When you think about the experience and the process from what that client has to go through from buying all the way right through to exchange completion, they're going to deal with 4 or 5, 6 different people potentially depending on their circumstance. So if you can have as many of those services, and particularly with those companies, whether they're part of your company or not, they share the same values as you do. The experience of that client is going to be far greater than it would do if you don't offer those things. I think being able to adapt and diversify in this market is hugely important. I mean, obviously, when you look back to, say, the 2008, 2009 house price crash, we saw that the lettings teams in businesses thrived, where sales businesses went backwards somewhat. Obviously we're not seeing that now, but of course, at some stage in the future, that could well happen again. So I think it's really, really important to diversify. But as I say, for those 2 reasons in particular, but the main thing for us is experience and having those arms of the business, which I think really, really allows that client experience to be the best it can be. Mortgages in particular. So again, obviously, when you look at the mortgage market in the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's changed massively. In fact, it's changing every day. We're getting these 90% products that are there one minute, they're pulled the next as well. So again, from a client perspective, you need a lot of people need educating in that, and as do we as estate agents as well. So it really helps us when our brokers are saying, right, great news, we've got a 90% product with platform or whoever it might be today. So again, it allows us to then demonstrate our knowledge to clients as well, and demonstrating knowledge, then demonstrating value as well. So I think it's hugely important to be able to diversify our business.
Yeah. And I think it comes sort of all back to the point where you have these different sort of areas within your business. Is you're the one that is in control of these areas. So, I mean, it can work in 2 ways. One, you need to make sure that the people, the group of individuals you have around you are up to scratch, because otherwise, if anything happens within that side of the business, it always comes back down to you. But I think that can be used as a real positive. Because at the end of the day, you can control what they're doing, you can control the customer experience, you can control how they're being serviced to throughout the transaction. And again, goes back to making sure that the customer has a great experience. So as well, through that, is there any sort of technology that you're using to help that process?
Yeah, I mean, we brought, from the start, we've always used CRM systems as opposed to being paper-based, like I know some agents do these days. So, we use a CRM systems to assist us with our day-to-day. We were the first agent, as far as I'm aware, the first agent in Colchester to really start using virtual tools.
Oh, really?
Obviously, they became a lot more prominent during lockdown, but we'd been using them for 3 years. And it was, again, going back to that marketing element, it was something that we offered clients, which we felt no one else was doing. So it's that real point of difference. Sure. And not just to use it as a point to say, oh, look, we're different, so that should be a reason for us to win your business. It's more a case of actually we generally believe that will help clients, buyers and sellers alike. You can do a whole walkthrough tour of a property without you having to attend the property. So saves the buyers going around and seeing the property if they don't like it. It saves wasting the seller's time. There's so many things that would take advantage there as well. But I don't think technology is replacing jobs in agency, or certainly not in the independent and probably in the corporate world as well.
Right.
I think if you're a business within the estate agency world and you're looking to try and replace people with technology at the moment, I think it's a dangerous path to be on, particularly with the market when it's in such uncertain times at the moment. It has been for the last 3 or 4 years. So I think more than ever is when you really need people to work alongside technology as opposed to tech substitute.
Sure. I think it'll be I guess, like you say, not replacing them, and perhaps even just becoming more skilled in one area. You said about virtual tours, and it is a great tool for helping people see houses, especially now. You can have people that specialise in making sure that the virtual tour it's better than the next person,
Yeah, sure.
and just ensuring that that's sort of, again, giving the customer a great experience. But so where do you see this sort of technology going in 5 years? Because I can't see, probably me being a bit naive, I don't see how much further this can go, because we've almost got every single area not replaced by technology or aided by technology. Do you think there's going to be any further advancement?
Do you mean with the virtual tours in general?
Just technology within agency in general.
I think where it can really help is the conveyancing side,
Sure.
the kind of back-end process from once you've had your offer accepted to exchange contracts. I mean, you know sort of very well with sort of working within that industry. It's a very archaic process. You know, it still takes 3, 4 months, 5 months sometimes for a sale, point of sale to exchange contracts, which in 2020 for me is ridiculous with the technology that's available. So I think technology can really, really aid there. But I think when you look at where we are in society in terms of what people want, what people do, and what the house buying process looks like from start to finish, I think you're right to a certain extent with regards to agency.
Yeah.
I think we've got, you look at the last real innovative piece of technology that really came into the property industry is probably Rightmove. You know, 'cause it really changed the way people buy properties, or people look for properties anyway. You know, as I said earlier, it stops people going around into a estate agency. It stops people having to buy the newspaper, and even then, you know, only half of the agent's properties, if that, are in that listing that day. So I think that's what obviously changed things. I don't think there's been one big change since then. But I think, going back to what technology could change, I think if they could bring in using text to say, turn searches around in days, not weeks. Answer queries within hours, not days. I think things like that could really, really help. And then really drive that time frame down from 3 months to 4 weeks from a point of exchange of contracts. But obviously there's got to be a desire for people within that side of the industry to actually really want to do that as well. And I think if I saw technology perhaps replacing jobs anywhere, I think it might be in that sector first before it certainly was in the estate agency, if at all.
Sure. And that's it. I mean, I find there's a little bit of a disconnect between estate agency and conveyancing, because you've got loads and loads of people in a estate agency bringing out amazing new software. And like you said, the conveyancing process is still very archaic and hasn't changed much. I know there is people, really sort of pushing for it, but there's not as, a smidgen on how much investment's going into conveyancing than it is to estate agency. And when there's that disconnect, you've got sort of, the agents doing everything that they can, and then you've got a process that's taken 4 months, and adding 4 months to a process where it's very guided by humans. You've got mortgage brokers, conveyancers, estate agents, loads of people in the different chains. Even if it's more than 3, more than 3 people in a chain, the amount of problems you can have within that 4 months just, absolutely skyrockets. So a 4-week turnaround almost sort of minimizes the amount of risk in that. But you're right, you've got to get somebody who's sort of willing to put in the work to make that better.
Yeah, I think where we, find there's a lot of problems at the moment are on leasehold properties. There's a lot of, leasehold packs that require deed of variations and things like that, and they're taking months. We've got one sale in particular at the moment, which I think it was agreed in October of last year. It's still not exchanged, and not looking like it's going to exchange for certainly not in the near future anyway. And it's just complication after complication after complication. And I think it comes down to a lot of things. I think obviously sometimes you find a solicitor who perhaps isn't as efficient as other solicitors. Well, that's obviously going to slow things down. It only takes one in a chain. And then slows down. When you think about like the mortgage underwriting process as well, some lenders, very few now, but some of them only accept paper applications as well. And you think kind of looking at where we are and where technology is today compared to years ago, that seems crazy. One thing I always find frustrating is when solicitors, they will never accept an electronic copy of the signed contract. I just surely now in 2020 that should be the case. Now, I'm not blaming the solicitors per se. I don't know whether it's the law society that's governing that, but something certainly needs to change. And yeah, technology could really help that, but it's the desire to really bring that technology in the first place that I think perhaps is easy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this lockdown and this pandemic period would have shown the necessity, or even given it a bit of a kick up the backside to, take it more online, because I mean, solicitors are typically, they're typically a little bit older. I feel like there's firms definitely coming in a bit of a younger generation, and you can't blame them. They've been doing it for the same for God knows however many years. So it's going to take a real sort of shake up to get to that point. But all of this sounds, it sounds like you've really sort of got the customer in your forefront of your mind in everything that you do. Is there, what sort of core values do you have then, if you could give us a few?
Well, I think, breaking it down, I would look at three things. I think marketing, for one, and obviously we talk about the reasons, but I'll expand on those more in a moment.
Yeah.
Service. And I think one for me is just really building relationships.
Sure.
Initially it was a case of, well, how do we treat people, whether it's staff or whether it's clients, but the end result is building a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
So I think those three things really resonate with us. And I said, going back to before we started the business, we really wanted to look at, what is it that a client wants? And now we bring that into that mindset within the workplace. We think, okay, well, what is it that our staff really want? Because every member of staff is different. One might be motivated by money, one might be motivated more by having a bit more time off, whatever it might be. So it's down to us as business owners to understand and identify what those desires are. So going back to building relationships, I think that's a hugely important thing for us. And it's just how we can then find those ways to build those relationships, because obviously everyone's different.
Yeah. Do you feel like your values have adapted as you've grown this company?
I think everything sort of adapts, but I think there's the same connotations of what they were initially, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We started in 2017 and we fast forward 3 years and we're completely different. I think we're probably very much the same, probably just adapted those individual core values into their own a little bit more. And being, given assistance by the staff that we've been fortunate enough to attract to the business. I think one of the big reasons for our success is that we've had a kind of ideology about what we feel our business and estate agency should look like.
Sure.
And really fortunate enough to attract, some of the best staff to our business, not just in ability, but in attitude as well. And they've really bought into that ethos and perhaps driven it forward and throwing their own ideas into the mix as well. It's a really refreshing place to work when people are all kind of striving for the same goal and people really believe it as well. They're not just saying they believe it and then, just working for the money.
Going home and slagging it off.
Well, as far as I'm aware anyway. So, but I think, everyone, as I said, really sort of buys into those values. Yes, they have adapted to some degree and they probably will do in the future, but I said there's connotations of those core values from the start. I think will always be there in the future. I think the hard thing is always within businesses as you grow. Our plans are to grow, certainly throughout Essex and into different areas as well. And obviously becomes that we become more offices, and so we'll find us as the leaders of the business, if you will, we'll find ourselves in different locations at different times. So whereas now we're all in one location and in one place, so it's very, very easy for us to kind of roll out what we feel is and isn't perhaps the right way to do things.
Sure.
But obviously being spread apart that's going to be where the next challenge will come in. But I think as long as we can get the right people in who believe in what we believe, then I think hopefully we can keep it going the same way.
Amazing. I think the thing I love most is that you've almost done it the other way around. From the start, you said, this is how I want estate agency to be. And you've sort of worked your way or morphed yourself into that. Whereas other people, they go in as an estate agent and try and become an estate agent. Whereas you've said, this is how I want it to be. And I think for people in the industry and even competition, it's good to see that this is how things should be done. And if you're at the forefront of that, you're going to succeed as I have seen in the last 3 years. But where do you see things going in the next few years for you?
Well, as I said, we certainly like to expand. We're looking at different offices. We've got a high-end brand that we'd certainly like to launch in the near future.
Amazing.
We, again, obviously typically go into new homes. We'd like to get into the new home sector as well. We've got some really good relationships with some developers from the start right to today's date. So we'd like to push more into the new home sector. And another thing we've also looked at and considered the idea of, and we probably will adapt or integrate within our business, is this hub style method as well,
sure.
which Russell talked a bit about that on the last podcast. I see a lot of agents doing that, and I certainly see value in that, not only for us at business, but for the individuals that come in and take on that self-employed role, if you will.
Yeah.
There's lots of avenues that we're looking to explore and kind of get into. If we could do them all tomorrow, great, that would be fantastic. But for obvious reasons, we can't. So it's focused on, we don't know what's going to be the next move just yet, but we're always talking about expansion and where we're going to grow, but more importantly, how we're going to grow, I think.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing where that does go. And I think that you've got a really strong foundation. So whatever you do, you're going to be in a strong position. But it's been absolutely amazing talking to you, Mark. Hearing sort of, it's really refreshing seeing, your side of things, how that's progressed throughout the last few years, and also how you learned from previous to get into where your company is now, and obviously where it is going in the future. So thank you very much. How do people connect with you, Mark?
So obviously social media. So we're sort of big on Instagram and Facebook. So if anyone wants to get involved with us, feel free to drop us a message on Facebook. We're really responsive on that. LinkedIn as well. Both myself and Shane have got our own LinkedIn pages. So by all means, drop us a message and we'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you very much. You've got a lot of value there, and I think the listeners are absolutely going to love it.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
No problem at all.
See you soon.